I want to keep a focus on the disadvantaged group of learners beyond early childhood development, but just across the board as far as basic education is concerned. The BELA Act, how does it help an
So,
impoverished black child?
so firstly, the more important, but there are key important things I think that are really essential from the act. Number one, it's important to note that the act is basically a culmination of case law over years. It's an amendment of the basic laws. It's an amendment bill and an act, but it's essentially putting together what the department has been taken to court and lost over. So now it's putting that all in a piece of legislation to say this is how the sector should operate. Number one, I think for me the biggest thing that is really useful is making grade R compulsory. It is a bold step because, like I said, your kid in this area probably has gone to grade 000 before they get to grade R. To make it compulsory, it means that the child in Kwakwa too has to have grade R. But it's a step in the right direction, but it needs funding. So that's been my message to the president and to the Minister of Finance to say this is absolutely the right way to go, but we need to fund it. We are 60% of the way there, but I'm not entirely convinced that even the 60% is of quality, because grade R teachers will tell you in KZN that we get paid a stipend and not a salary. Already that tells you that it is educators who are not necessarily being valued, which means that you are not putting value in that area. So there has to be a complete dimensional shift. So the BELA Act seeks to do that. That is exciting for me. It needs to be really backed up with finances, but also governance. We are quick, and I would hate for the Minister of Finance to hear this, but we're always quick to say government has no money. But sometimes it's also about governance. And are we doing justice to governance? Are we setting up systems? Because you can have money, but it can disappear because you don't have proper systems. So that's going to be the exciting thing about trying to set that system up. How do you make sure ECD fits in with grade R? Then there are other really useful things today. I think one, we know that the biggest incidents of violence in schools are actually educators who are still practicing corporal punishment. The Act criminalizes that for the very first time. Educators have corporal punishment has been illegal for a long time, but we know that educators still do it. And of course, people say there's various reasons, and discipline is one of them. But there's some really key things that come out of that Act that will help us move the sector forward. It's just really been unfortunate for me, I think, Tshidi, that the Act has been kind of marred with so much controversy because it means then that we miss the point of why the Act was necessary to begin with. That's why I said to you at the beginning, this is a culmination of case law, where the department has been taken to court, lost, and now we've put it all together in this bill, in this Act. And so it's important for those reasons. And so I think it will bridge the gap to your question. It will bridge the equality gap in that sense because of the early child learning focus. Then, of course, the other thing which has been part of the contentious aspects is the issue around language of learning and teaching. And again, data shows us, we recently received the literacy results last week. Data shows us that kids who are being taught in their mother tongue language outperform children who are not taught in their mother tongue language. So English and Afrikaans kids outperform, and this is just beyond the disparity of resources. Kids, English and Afrikaans speaking children outperform children who are not taught in that language, who are taught in English or Afrikaans, but who are not English and Afrikaans speaking. By far. Whether it's science, by far. You'll see the graphs. Because from grade 1 to grade 3, you are taught in your mother tongue generally. And then from grade 4, you then, particularly in say, rural schools, then you start introducing English. Now you're expecting that child to learn English as a language and learn through English. So they're learning now maths or whatever, learning through English. So what the Act says is that, Section 29 of the Constitution says that where it is practicable, learners should have access to mother tongue language. And I think this is a long conversation that's been long coming. It's just so unfortunate that for me it's so divisive, because actually the biggest crisis here is for poor black learners who have actually been left behind because they have been taught in English and through English for a very long time. And as a result, they're being left behind in critical subjects. So those are some of the things that are exciting about this piece of legislation. It's just we never talk about it. We talk about the
Section 4 and 5.
yeah.
language policy, and things around SGBs as well.
And admission policy.
Admission policies.
Yeah.
But let's speak about that though. Because the counter argument in essence is that these two issues have been used to exclude many, a child in particular communities. And I think that speaks more to experience of people in suburban areas, where you try and get a child in your neighborhood, it's a predominantly Afrikaans neighborhood, the child is left out again due to language. That also is a legitimate argument to be made, is it not?
Absolutely. It is absolutely a legitimate argument to be made. And where that has happened, it actually goes against everything that our Constitution stands for. And so, again, I mean, completely debunk this. Sorry to nerd out.
No,
to
go on.
completely to debunk this. You are absolutely right. So what the Act seeks to do is to say, how is the decision made to admit a child? First, they apply at a school, and then the SGB is involved in setting the admission policy. And how is that admission policy, put together? Then the Act says, an SGB may accept or not accept a child on whatever reasons, but then the HOD becomes the appeal authority. So the HOD now must negotiate with the SGB for whatever reason. Now, SGBs are saying, if you are saying that the HOD is the final arbiter, you completely leave us out of the conversation. And we are the first port of governance at a school. And it's true. But at the same time, Tshidi, no SGB, no school has the right to exclude a child on the basis of race or language or even sexual orientation, because that's something else that we're going to be dealing with very, very soon. Once South Africa moves on from BELA, we're going to be talking about gender-neutral bathrooms. We're going to be talking about transgender children. So the point is, no school is allowed to make that kind of exclusion. The real contention here is what comes first? It's the chicken or the egg? Is it the HOD first, and then we are the last arbiter as the SGB? Or is it the SGB first and then the HOD? Literally, that is the only contention here. Everybody recognizes that no child can be sent 30 kilometers away when there's a school right around the corner that they should be actually entitled to go to. So again, there's been a lot of political noise, and fair enough. And somebody asked me the other day, why do you think this is? And I said, because this bill came in the middle of an election campaign. And it was passed and it was debated. And many people in the sector will tell you this has been years in the making. As I said, this is case law.
Yeah.
But it came in the middle of an election campaign, and it's such a pity because it's now been so polarizing. But now when I talk to you like this, you realize what is the real contention here. The contention can never be about, can we exclude black children from going to a predominantly Afrikaans school? You can't. It's against the law.
It's very difficult, Siviwe, to view it that way or to try and remove it from the politics when you see how much of it has been politicized, right? I want to ask about the Fourth Record Monument March, because that's part of why it's an issue for some people. It sets off alarm bells. But before that, the political football that's currently at play, the process that you went through at Nedlac with Solidarity, the presidency coming out and saying, actually, this holds nothing. That current issue, that contention, how do we manage that? How do we get past that? Because you're meant to make recommendations, I think, to the presidency. He ultimately, though, is the authority, I imagine, on what the way forward is. Where are we now? Because Solidarity also, I think if I heard properly, will say, but there was somebody from presidency who was part and parcel of that agreement that was signed at Nedlac.
This is one of those things that I think, once again, Tshidi, I think it really it attracts the worst kind of our politics. Because the Nedlac Section 77 of the Labor Relations Act process is a very dry process. It's it's not even that political. I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
But I've had to kind of learn, and I'm pretty sure Nedlac has probably never seen anything more political.
No, I think Nedlac has a fair amount, but I don't think that they fully dealt with this with the understanding of how political it is.
Yes. So Solidarity, the trade union, approaches Nedlac as they are entitled to.
Yes.
They cite me and the presidency as the respondents, and they say we want to strike on the basis of these clauses. And we sit in protracted, I send my advisor, the president sends his DDG, we send a legal representative from DBE, they all sit with Nedlac and they all then negotiate. And the negotiation is simply this. Okay, we hear your concerns that there's no legal clarity in some of the clauses, not just 4 and 5 in its entirety, by the way. Again, we've moved the conversation forward so much from that Nedlac process, because when we drilled down, we realized it's 4F, for instance, that may be a problem. It's not even the entire, section. So anyway, then what the Nedlac process says is, once we've reached agreement, a settlement agreement, which we did, all three parties did, the presidency, DBE, and Solidarity, the trade union, that took us there, not because we chose to negotiate with Solidarity, which has been some of the mischievous reporting. They took us there. Similarly to if Satu took me to Nedlac, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So the settlement agreement was simply that, okay, the minister can make recommendations to the president that says, all right, we understand the whole act needs to go. Remember, it was never about not implementing the act. The act is implemented. It's been signed into law.
Yeah.
It was a matter of saying which regulations need to come before you commence with certain sections. So I can make recommendations to the president to say, President, we are commencing with these sections. I would recommend that 4F be commenced once I've written the regulations that make it more clear. Simple. Send it to the president. The president can say, I don't like these recommendations, throws them into the bin, and then we move on. Or he can say, hey, man, this is a really nifty solution to some of the problems that we've been facing, and we take it forward. So that's actually just been the process, but it's just been been caught in a whirlwind. I was very confused by the deputy president's very hysterical statement, for instance, on Friday, which came from dizzying heights about, we didn't know about this. I mean, it's not my job to make sure that every single person in the presidency is aware. If the presidency sends a DDG, a very high-ranking official, my assumption is that everybody is on board. So, and so the insinuation that somehow I was seeking a backroom deal with Solidarity, frankly, is nonsensical. It's mischievous. And I think that's where that politics we spoke about earlier comes into play.
Oh, Succession 2027. That's actually what Siviwe was saying. Where is that process in terms of the recommendations on your part?
I've made the recommendations to the president. And so they will be going soon. And he may choose to take them on board or not.
I imagine it'll come up at the NC's NEC meeting, the issue of BELA, because it is so highly politicized.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't see it not being on the table.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you remember the extension. So, and then again, just to quickly add, before the deputy president perhaps sends out another statement, that it's important to note that this does not in any way replace the GNU process of negotiation.
Yes, I understood that.
Yeah, so, the conflation of the two is weird to me, because, I mean, the Nedlac process is something else. And so remember that ends on the 13th of December.
Yeah.
And so we'll see then how that unfolds.